Another web-based program. Okay, it's being recorded. I'm glad to hear that. Welcome to another web-based program, which is sponsored by the Department of Organizational Behavior at the Weatherhead School of Management at Case Western Reserve University. As Kevin indicated, I'm Harlow Cohen, and I'm a professor of organizational behavior, and I'm the faculty director of the MPOD program. I have the distinct pleasure today to introduce you to Leslie Yerkes. Leslie's a dear friend and a colleague that relationship dates back, I should mumble this, Leslie, about 25 years or so. And every so often, one of our graduates from the program is able to distinguish themselves through their achievements and through their contributions. Leslie is one such person who has clearly done that. I'm going to read an abbreviated bio for Leslie because otherwise, if I go through all of her accomplishments, she won't have any time to present because it's pretty numerous and long in nature. Leslie is the president of Catalyst Consulting Group, which is an organization development and change management consulting firm that's based right here in Cleveland, Ohio. Leslie's goal is to help people create sustainable organizations. She is a graduate of Wittenberg University, and she earned a master's degree in organization development and analysis. She's a graduate of MPOD 7. She has taught at John Carroll University, at Baldwin Wallace College. She is a frequent presenter at the Weatherhead Dively Center of Executive Education, as well as the Mandel School of Applied Social Science at Case Western Reserve. She is the co-author of the best-selling book, 301 Ways to Have Fun at Work. She has also written Beans, 4 Principles for Running a Business in Good Times and Bad, and They Just Don't Get It. Changing Resistance into Understanding. It was re-released in 2007. Fun Works, Creating Places Where People Love to Work, and Beyond Kicks and Carrots, Motivation in the 21st Century. I love the titles, Leslie. Her works have been translated into more than a dozen languages and have sold hundreds of thousands of copies worldwide. And so with that, Leslie, I'm going to turn it over to you and hope everybody enjoys it, as I'm sure they will.
It is a real privilege to be here with you tonight via Zoom. I feel like I've come full circle in my career for a couple of reasons this evening. When I enrolled at Case, computers had just come into being. I had a doc matrix printer. I used green bar paper. Some of you will not remember that at all. And emails had not yet come to be. Harlow said it's been about 20 or 25 years, but it's actually been over 30 because Harlow Cohen was one of the people I chose to interview as he had a graduate degree from Case in organizational behavior. As I did my consideration for applying to Case for what was then known as the Masters of Organizational Development and Analysis. Harlow told me my questions were, what is this field? Where is it going? Are there careers? Is there a future? And Harlow gave me a lot of encouragement. So to come back around 30 years later and to be reflecting on one's career is a fun way to spend a winter's evening in Cleveland, Ohio, where we've had a fresh snow. So welcome to everyone this evening. The session this evening was entitled Committed to Discovery Throughout Your Career. And never before would I see myself, or did I ever envision that I would be the one speaking about my career in its sort of longitudinal line. As I started my career in Cleveland, I moved here when I was 25, and I started my consulting practice when I was 28. And for what felt like forever, I was often the only woman in the room, often the youngest person in the room, and frequently and pretty often the only non-Clevelander, meaning I was not born in this region. And that's still a distinction that's made by me to me, even though I've lived here for most of and all of my adult life. So I have this funny mindset, and that mindset is I'm the youngest person in the room, and I'm the newbie. And now I find myself 35 years later, often being one of the more senior people in the room, having been around Cleveland for a long, long time, and having been in the field of organizational behavior also for a long, long time. So it is a little bit funny to me that I would be talking about myself in the new terms, which is I'm in my midlife, if not in the last chapter of my career. But this evening is about this discovery, which has been a common theme of my life, which is I love to learn and I love to facilitate learning, and that every opportunity is a teaching moment and a learning moment, and how do you take advantage of it? I want to let you know that this evening I will be posing big questions, and via Zoom we don't really have dialogue, but you do have a chat box where I would love if you would start to pour out your consideration, and Kevin will sort of chime in and summarize for us all what is being captured and written. So we'll always pause for a few minutes for you to sort of digest the question and put your 2 cents in, and for Kevin to synthesize. As I said, I think I am entering my last chapter. Harlow was with me in my first chapter of my sort of swerve, as Michelle Obama calls her husband's career moves, swerves into the field of organizational behavior. What I knew about myself was I think that people are basically good, well-intended, able to learn if only they want to, and 2 heads are better than 1. I carried that into my initial career post-undergraduate when I was an educator in the field of special education with challenged children. I carried it now into the field of organizational behavior, working with adults who frequently are just kids in big bodies. And those beliefs have served me very, very well. My pursuit of a career in organizational behavior, though, in the early days, we just didn't know what that meant or where it was going or what the contribution would be made in the workplace. What that was to become sort of has been the evolving thing for me in all of these years. But I caught into it because it was about people and it was about process. And I had this sort of North Star, which was my family had made it perfectly clear to me that I was to work, and that I observed about them and then about me that I would spend more time at work than any activity in my life, and more time with my coworkers than maybe with my family and friends. And my father had a very World War II generation view of work, which is it's what you had to do, need to do. It was what you did to earn your money. And you didn't necessarily have to like it or be liked as you were doing it. So when things didn't work in the workplace, his answer often was, just suck it up. That didn't sound so good to me, so I would turn to my mother, who always showed the other side of any conversation. And she, early in my teens, said, Leslie, find out what you do best, follow your passion, and find your bliss. And to a teenager, that didn't make a lot of sense, but here I am, long in tooth in my career, and it makes a lot of sense to me now. My career path into the field of organizational development, change management, organizational behavior was very much, I always stepped away from when it didn't feel right or good or contributing. And even though I didn't always know what I was stepping towards, my pursuit was to find healthy work relationships and healthy work environments so that I could contribute in a positive way. And the field grew up around me, which was not only could I find those places, but I could help to create those places and those spaces. I have been a business owner, a consultant, an entrepreneur, then an author, a speaker, a facilitator, and now even a coach for the past 35 years. The first 10 years of that journey, very young, very naive, very tumultuous, and learn as you go and grab and make it happen. Starting a business 85% of them failed before their first 5 years. So it was figuring out how to do that well and how to craft a career in this field. The second 10 years, and now that I have so many years under my belt, I think of them now simply in decades. When I used to count the days, the weeks, the months, the business quarters, and then happily arrive at 1 year old. Now I count them in decades. The second was very busy, filled with 6 books, 50% travel, lots of speeches, and many, many interesting interactions. The last 10 that precede where I started my last chapter, I reformatted my business to find my way away from the busyness of supporting a big company and into supporting a practice where I could be involved in every intervention from beginning to end, because that's where my joy came from. It's been a constant reinvention of oneself. It's been a constant evolution. The field has grown up with me and around me and me within it. I'm so grateful to CASE for creating the initial community, and I know that someone like Sarah Spengler is on our Zoom tonight. She was one of the first people to form community around the graduates and still is leading that alumni group. One of my good friends was in our MPOD, our mod together, and we are still friends today. And so what's so much fun about this field is it is a community, and if you create it, stick with it, it will serve you well. My book writing also created a community for me. I have written for the publishers Barrett Kohler and Josie Bass, and along with that came the community of other people doing similar work, and we get together a lot. My clients are a community, and Cleveland is a community, and my colleagues in the field are a community. Collaboration has been sort of one of the things that I have actively pursued throughout, and as I enter my last chapter, it is prime in as how I want to finish my contributions, which is in the company of others. So tonight, in thinking about discovery, I'd like to share my own, but I'd like to tap into yours and help you maybe think in terms about your career, where you are now, where you'd like to be, and entertain a few big questions with me. So that was a long introduction, but now we're going to move towards and in the direction of those big questions. So it wouldn't be fair to start an introduction without letting you know that 2 of my greatest teachers have been my dogs. Buddha Bear is to the right there, the Brindle Boxer, and Big Boy is the rescue dog that really changed my life. Part of this last career is that some of the events in my life became the biggest teaching moments to help me both reinforce what I knew, use what I knew, become more present, mindful, and authentic. And the true teachers came not anymore from books or from workshops, but from the living big experiences. And I'm going to share that with you tonight because I think that part of our role is to embrace everything that comes our direction and to turn it into both teaching and learning moments, and to help others to do the same. That not everything that strengthens the capability of people is learned from a book or a workshop or a degree. It's actually learned often from the living. So let's go down to the big questions. I shared with you that my beliefs include that people are basically good, well-intended, that they're capable of learning if they want to, and 2 heads are better than 1. I also believe that the people that I'm working with collectively are wiser than me. So engagement and dialogue is essential. The question I'd love for you to turn into in chat is, what are the core beliefs that guide your work? Regardless of where you are, with what clients, with what size of organization, with what type of industry, for-profit or nonprofit, as you make your way through your career, what are the core beliefs that stay constant? And they are what you carry into every engagement, whether you're an internal consultant or external consultant. What are these beliefs that make you who you are and how you do your work? I'm going to pause and let you sort of start to use your keyboard and key into the chat. what are some of these core beliefs that are always with you, that you would never sacrifice, put down, or set aside? They influence your choices. They influence your processes. They influence who you are and how other people experience you. What are some of these? Kevin, as you watch these come in, will you take a look-see, and will you share from our community that's here this evening some of the core beliefs that are theirs?
Yes, we have some rolling in right now. Faith says integrity, challenging assumptions, deepening the human connection between and within organizations. Lisa said core beliefs. Faith said equity. Massimo said people are resourceful. George said every process is perfectly designed to get the result it gets. Sarah Spangler said belief. I have to leave the client with greater capacity than when they started, so they learn from our work together, and if they work with me again, they want something new and different because they grew along the way. Ganesh said people are assets and mobilizing their strengths are crucial to engagement. Amanda Varley said people are more than what they do. They are human beings, not human doings. And George also chimed in with, if you want to improve the process, ask the folks already embedded in the process. And Laura finally said, we are a sum of our relationships.
Wonderful. I encourage you to hold this question out there. If you have a mindfulness practice of journaling or meditating, to constantly ask yourself this question. I know that my core beliefs evolved very, very early on. They influenced my undergraduate work and the direction that I went to work with children that were challenged. They influenced my stepping away from several employers, looking in a direction where I could find environments that encouraged and supported and aligned with the beliefs that I held. They have not changed over time. They have deepened greatly. And I think they very much brought me into the field of organizational behavior. I add a few to them, but I don't believe the core beliefs are a laundry list of a long thing. I think they're very core and essential, but they start to be mantras of the way I live. And one additional one I would add to you is one of the sort of tenets of my business success has been once a client, always a client, that I maintain the relationships even when the fees have been paid and the work is complete. And we, by the way, work until the work is complete. It's the guarantee of our business. I stop worrying about the money and worry about the contribution, the outcomes, and the value I deliver. And I find that sort of takes care of itself. It's a reinforcing circle. But once a client, always a client is very much my core ability of being very loyal. I care about the people for whom I serve and work with. And even when I'm no longer retained by them in any way, shape, or form, the caring doesn't go away. So I watch their organizations. When something happens to them, I lean in. If I find something that might be resourceful and helpful to them, I volunteer it. Being generous and altruistic is just, again, part of the nature of how I do or be with my clients and my colleagues and my friends. So anytime we circle up as a community, I think this should be a question we entertain because I think it differentiates us from other kinds of consultants. The what we do is important, but the how we do it is essential. So thinking about this, I have another question for you. I believe that to be in the field of organizational behavior and to help people create, navigate through, reinvent themselves, deal with crisis and collapse is a form of leadership. And that we are leaders, even if we're not given titles or formal power, we are influencers. And that I really believe that my leadership has been created through the formative experiences that I've gone through as an individual. You start to get perspective when you're 40 years into your career and you can look back at it and reflect upon it. I am who I am today because of many of my formative experiences. I am a person who wants to make things better because I was born into a family that was irreparably broken due to a tragedy. And I was to be the family fixer. And I practiced that hard. I lived that role. I took it seriously and I dedicated myself to it. Little did I know that that was going to be my way into my life and into my career. I'm not so much a believer in fixing because I think there's a lot of ego attached to that. I believe in facilitating, which is we're surrounded by capable people who need our help, that we might guide or recommend a process or give them a resource or be their champion. We don't fix people, they're not problems. We facilitate growth, change, and resiliency. So my formative experiences make me who I am. They are impressions upon me. I look at both the things that are positive in me that they bring to the surface, and there's some things I should be letting go of and have tried to shed along the way. And I know that being in a master's program was a shedding process of what are the things I want to let go of that hinder my contributions. But my parents' divorce was a very large lifetime formative moment. My year as a foreign exchange student living in a foreign land when there was no internet and a letter took 6 weeks to arrive and 6 weeks to go back, I had to really discover who I was. My family moved 9 times and I had to be greatly adaptable. I started a business, and that's a boot camp for learning how to do things well and work really, really hard. I'm appreciative of all my formative experiences, those that were happy and healthy and those that were challenging, because each allowed me to learn big lessons. And that's one of the things that I so appreciate, that a gift I was given, which was whatever I'm experiencing, I grab the lesson and run with it. I don't know why, but I was born with a very optimistic, a very hopeful and faith-based orientation, and that's been my guide. So the big question I'd like you to think about, because you and I, when we step into relationship with others, bring ourselves as an instrument. We should not bring our stuff, but we do step in with our whole selves. Are you high on your self-awareness, knowing who you bring? And what are the formative experiences that have most influenced that person you bring to your work today? I'm going to pause as you think about that. This, again, is not a simple question. It's a big question. Believe it or not, it's one of the questions I most frequently like to ask in an interview because it's a big question and it requires some deep thinking. Who are you? And what are some of the most formative experiences that has shaped you and who you bring to your work? I'm going to pause, and in a minute, Kevin, can you sort of give us some ideas of some of these experiences that make up our community? We have lots of responses coming in. I can see that, thanks to Kevin.
All right, Massimo said, living in many and different places. Sarah Spangler said, all the successes and mistakes. I debrief with myself all the time, asking what went well, what could I do differently next time. Too many formative experiences to list, but definitely MOD program is at the top. There are other people are typing, so I will do this for another little bit here. Faith said, youth as an outsider, grew up in a community full of super ethical people. When I entered school and the normal world, I did not fit in. I've always looked for hidden paradigms and systems.
So again, you may borrow this question anytime you like. I use it on interviews. I use it when I'm working with groups. I'm using it when I want to get to know people that I'm coaching. It's a big question and it requires some thinking. I am the person I am today because of some of these very big experiences. And in the recent years, I've had a few more very large formative experiences that continue to shape and grow me. So one of my biggest lessons is I'm not cooked yet. I am still capable of stretching, learning, growing. And in fact, this Maslow's hierarchy, I keep stepping up the ladder towards more enlightened states, and the minute I think I'm close to being there, I find another doorway to a very special place that opens a piece of my heart, my mind, my capabilities, and makes me a deeper, better coach, consultant, facilitator, and friend. So, I want to let you know there's been lots of books in my life. I have a huge collection. I both like to write them and read them and share them and give them away. But early in my career, one of the books that I discovered in the onset was this book written by Jim Kouzes and Barry Posner called The Leadership Challenge. It's in its 5th edition. They've continued a little bit. What's so strange about this was it was the first leadership model that I used. And along the way in my career, through my own writing, I got to know Jim. And he wrote the foreword for one of my books, and I consider him a friend. I never knew in the beginning that I would have this opportunity to meet someone whose life work so influenced me and so gifted me with a framework that I use so frequently and still use today in my work. We don't know the road that our work's going to put us on, but if you just keep doing good work, some of the people you most admire will become part of your circle of influence. So it's not a formal question here, but I'd like you to be thinking about what are the books, what are the people, what are the frameworks that most have influenced you and are influencing you. The great news is there's really wonderful work out there, more to come, and some you're creating yourself. There's another question coming, however. I believe that we are instruments and that we need to have experience, we need to be practiced, we need to learn processes, we need to grow and develop ourselves in lots of different ways. But even though we might know the right process and have the experience of using it with people and be very practiced at it, if we're too tired, if we lose our self-awareness, if our own stuff gets in our way of being present, we might find ourselves not able to be as good as we're capable of being. Over the years, I've worked very, very hard, and I will quite honestly admit to cycling through burnout about every 6 years. My willingness and my commitment to putting others first and being a servant leader, I had not always learned the lesson of taking care of myself. I'm more comfortable in giving than receiving. I'm more comfortable in doing than I am in being. But I have learned that if I don't take care of myself as an instrument, my ability to contribute is greatly diminished. So I carry with me a mental model, and it's the north, south, east, west poles. The Native American Indians used these 4 poles to think in terms of spiritual well-being, social well-being, physical well-being, and mental well-being. Stephen Covey sort of featured this in his book, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, and I've carried it with me ever since. Because if you let yourself be diminished on any one of those poles, you become diminished in your contribution. I've learned that my balance is essential, that I take care of myself and am actively pursuing well-being in each of those directions. Physical self for me is the first one to go. Social self follows. Spiritual self is the next, and then mental is the last. So I think of those poles and I make sure I have 1 or 2 healthy habits in each of those directions that I adhere to consistently. When I'm in balance, I find that I love my work rolls out easily. People appreciate my work better because I'm taking care of the instrument. So I'd like to hear from you. What are the things that you do to fill your own buckets, your physical bucket, your mental bucket, your social bucket, your spiritual bucket? What do you do to ensure that you as an instrument are well-tuned and in balance so that you can give generously to others? I'm going to pause while you start to write down some of the tips of yours. Is it meditation or journaling? Is it yoga? Is it walks? Is it coming on webinars like this to learn something new? Is it a book? What are the kinds of things that you're doing that are habitual, essential to your well-being, to maintaining the good headspace of a great consultant and the good headspace of a great friend and family member? What do you do to take care of yourself? I'm going to pause while Kevin sort of starts to do that and we learn from our community. What are these good tips, Kevin?
I think everyone is still typing, but I will get started with one that we do have. Faith says, walk with my dog every day, spend time with family and friends, and do fiction reading, and also go see art and poetry. Massimo says, walk in the nature with Luke, and then that's his dog. Lisa says, I say, good job, Lisa, to celebrate myself, attend church, gratitude journal, monthly massage, power yoga, dancing, music, pet, and enjoy nature. Sarah Spengler says, make time for play and sloth. Downtime for reading sci-fi helps me keep my imagination fresh is key for me. Massages, but not quite often enough. And spending time with people who support and enrich me. Amanda Varley says, find ways to be curious, have alone time, cultivate my creative interests, and then in parentheses, theater and movies. Jay Paringle says, practicing mindfulness during everyday tasks, setting aside time for family and friends, reading every day, book club, running outside, regular dinner dates with girlfriends. Laura says, I reflect on my gratitude every day. What did I experience today that I am grateful for? Meditation, learning, and laughter daily. And George says, teaching at KSU and lots of reading. We got one more in from a number, not sure who it is. They said, family time with my daughter and cat Kiki, learning a new language, music, movies, and socializing.
Thank you so much. There have been many times in my career that I've been the cobbler's son, which was the metaphor of not having the good shoes. I am so sort of passionate about ensuring that others are well and in balance, but I haven't been as passionate about taking care of myself. And I know in this last sort of 10 years of my marathon run in my career, this is going to be an important thing that I keep in balance because I know it's essential to my ability to be a contributor when I'm long in tooth. So thank you for all of those things. They remind us. With a few minutes that are left, I want to sort of turn and say, because of the last 5 years of my life, I have learned that life experiences help to hone and practice and grow and deepen one's capabilities. Those that know me well know that I've done a couple of crazy things. I've done a lot of crazy things in my life. I love to risk take and I love adventure. But about 5 years ago, I started to put my life on a different track that wasn't planned. And that track included a big life event, which was in the pursuit of helping a friend find her runaway dog. I discovered a feral, starving, very large dog. And I don't know why, but on that evening, I said to this dog who wouldn't come within 50 yards of me, I'm coming back every night to feed you until you come home with me. Little did I know that my commitment would be 2 months of nightly visits along with my original dog, Buddha Bear. At the time that I was doing this, I was yet again in another cycle of burnout. And what happened in this commitment, the thing that added one more list to my things to do and made the day longer, was that I was not going to succeed in my mission of ensuring that this dog came in from the impending winter to live unless I slowed down, aligned what was happening on the inside to the outside, brought an authentic, present person every evening, and worked the agenda that was simply to earn his trust. I have the great privilege of participating in a lot of emotional intelligence at Case Western Reserve and sharing it with my clients. And I boasted to Melvin Smith that the time spent with a dog that I then called Big Boy, because that's what he was my best practice of emotional intelligence. When I was self-aware, self-managed, aware of him and the fear he brought and what he needed, and simply stayed in relationship, we advanced. And when I let go of that and worked hard, and if force or fear came into that relationship, we lost weeks. The good news was, after 2 months of constant, loyal, consistent presencing, he let me put a collar on him, and my intention was simply to create a healthy dog and find him a happy home. And in the end, he stayed with us. It complicated my life because we could no longer live in a high-rise condo. He was not welcome there, and I had to move, and he was a handful in the beginning. But I want to tell you, this is one of the formative experiences. Big Boy taught me to be a better person. So one of those sayings is, am I being as good a person as my dog thinks I am? And I try every day and bring that person to my clients. I learned so much and gained so much confidence in myself, and a personal healing moment, that 6 months later, when I saw a crisis in my own family, I rescued my mother from a locked dementia ward and brought her into my home. She did not want her daughters to care for her in her declining health, but that's exactly what happened. And she, who was on hospice when I rescued her, and the doctor said could go at any time, went on to live a year. And it was a year that I once again needed every single capability that I had learned in my practice and that I had learned to teach others, including something as simple as 5S'ing the little home that we lived in, so everything had its place and chaos didn't ensue in the crisis of each and every day that came with caring with a person on hospice. I want to tell you that that year of living and dying with my mother, Betsy, was one of the most important years of my life and taught me the biggest lessons every day. I journaled all the time, every single day. I posted frequently, sharing universal lessons that people shared back with me and became a community. And I pulled all that I learned into my work. As a result, I have 2 more books drafted, believe it or not, about the Big Boy story and the Betsy story, that I really have learned that life teaches us a lot of what we need to know, and we need to tap into these experiences, both of ourselves, and bring them into our work. And I'm learning how to encourage my clients to tell their stories and to find their strength from the things they're doing in their everyday life. So I would like for you to entertain the question at the bottom of the slide. Is there anything happening in your life that you think is a practice experience, that you are using all that you know in order to navigate that experience? And that by having that experience, you're becoming a more capable, deeper, stronger self that you can bring to both your work and life relationships. Does anybody in the past few years have one of those experiences? Is anybody living through one of those right now? And mine is just simply the awareness of turn everything into the opportunity to use it to be a better instrument. Are you having one of those experiences right now? I'm going to pause just a little bit because I know we're coming up on our timing, and I just want to see if, Kevin, anybody shared.
George was brave enough to share. He said his grandsons. Jay Pringle said husband's army deployment. Sarah Spangler is testing me. She wrote, learning to ride a motorcycle a few years ago was an experience about courage and fierce intention. It translated into fierceness and more willingness to speak truth to power in my change work. I have learned to own my lane in a whole new way. My clients see me setting new and clear boundaries that we can talk about in a more clear way.
One of the things I hope that I've asked big questions that you will continue on to ponder. that you think about your own experiences and how they're shaping you as an instrument, that you think about how the experiences that people in your workplaces and client organizations are having, that you can help them to sort of open their arms wide and embrace. Because I don't anymore, I love to give a good book. I love to lend a good workshop. I love a stimulus that makes someone have more self-awareness. And I'm finding many of those to be the things that are happening in their lives. With a few minutes left, I'd like to bring a few more things.
While you're transitioning slides, I'm going to read two more just real quick because they wrote, Faith wrote, my degree at Case MPOD is my second master's since 2014. When I left India after 7 years, got divorced, and had to reinvent my entire life and self. My dog Fina came with me from India, and we have both had to become new people. Amanda Varley said, working on a PhD, studying how we can be our best selves at work and beyond.
Wonderful. I love this opportunity to be with you in webinar, and I really look forward to be with you face-to-face in community, because that's what our field does is we ask these big questions, we share our vulnerability, we learn how to deepen ourselves so we can guide and help others to find their most authentic self as well. I know that I enter my last chapter, and who knows how long it's going to be. I've not put a timeline to it, but I'm really looking forward to it. And I know that the work of Robert Greenleaf in servant leadership is very, very strong in my heart. This has also been another guidepost, which is I love being in service of others. I'd like to say that I want to make other people radically successful. And I just trust that when I do that generously, that my success is taken care of as well. I want to let you know I'm going to continue to be the OB consultant that I am, doing the work that I have always done, writing new books, speaking in interesting places, coaching and counseling and facilitating, and continuing to learn new things and hone my craft. But because of some of these life experiences, I have always tithed my time. I have always given of my time when people couldn't pay and had felt needs. I'm going to tithe with greater intention now in 3 directions. Because of my experience with Big Boy, I am going to tithe both time and talent and resource in the direction of supporting organizations that rescue, rehab, and rehome animals. Because of my experience with my mother, I'm going to tithe time and talent and resources in the direction of aging in America, elder care, and finding better ways to help support people who are caring for their loved ones in their homes. And because of these big experiences, I neglected myself, and I found myself challenged with diabetes, type 2. And the good news is I have outdistanced that. But I now know that diabetes is growing at a very rapid rate in America, and more people are dying of it than any other disease. And a lot of it is associated with things like food deserts and not understanding. So the third sort of, I call them, they're the legs to my stool, is I'm going to tithe my time, talent, and resources in the direction of depression, diabetes, and health. It's so strange that even in my work, even though this may carry me away from what sounds like for-profit businesses, I bump into these 3 areas of my philanthropic interest in every one of my clients. So one of the things I'd like to have you think about is I think we advance our world, our community, our profession when we tithe. What are the things that you're most passionate about? Where would you like to lean in and generously give your talent, your time, your resources without concern of remuneration? How will your leadership evolve your generation, our generation, and our world? I'm going to pause for just a minute and see if anybody responds to that, Kevin, and make some concluding remarks. It's a big question, I know.
So as they're trickling in, Faith wrote, currently volunteering to build community solar in my town.
It's a big question. One of the things I'd like you to know about sort of my philosophy of tithing is I've tithed when people didn't have the resources. I tithed when there was no work, and so why not work where the work was needed even when there weren't the resources? And I just trust the universe. I've experienced in these 35 years of being self-employed that when I tithed appropriately, the world of work took care of me. Do good work, put it out there. When you do your best work, people find their way to you. So I found that tithing always came back. I didn't expect it from the same place that I made the contribution, but I know that my generous spirit has served me well and given me new experiences and new relationships that have deepened my life and thus my practice in so many ways. I really love our community. I love our profession. I want to find ways to contribute and advance it and to touch as many people and be touched by you as well. So I look forward to connecting with you in this community. I'd like to thank Kevin for being our technical host and our facilitator of the comments, for Harlow for opening this up and being able to connect with him after 30 plus years and keep the relationship going. Pat Petty, who helps to facilitate these things happen, and the leadership of our alumni group. I'm so proud to be associated with graduates of our university and of this program. And I look forward to meeting more of you in all sorts of different venues and ways. Kevin, is it possible to put people's faces up if they want to be there and field any last questions or comments or voice that people would like to put in before they sign off for the evening?
Can absolutely do that. What I will do is I'll read some of the other comments that came into your last question, let everyone know when the next webinar will be, and then anyone that is still interested in being on the call, you can feel free to unmute yourself and have a conversation. So Amanda said, resolving information inequities to support people in working toward their dreams. Sarah Spengler said, I'm exploring empowerment of lower levels of employees, seeing themselves as leaders who have influence to wield. And then someone else said, being involved in a lot of CSR activities. I am currently involved in renovating a local school, offering free counseling to my local community. And then Laura finished it out with a comment to you, Leslie, that said, love your direction/evolution. So with that being said, with all the comments having been addressed, what I'm going to do is just let everyone know that the next MPOD Alumni Webcast is actually going to occur on a Thursday, not a Tuesday. So it's Thursday, March 28th at the same time. I'm sure you'll be getting information about that. So what I will do right now is I will conclude this session, and anyone who wants to unmute their video or unmute their audio and have a dialogue with Leslie, feel free to do so. I'll see everyone next month.
Thank you,
Leslie,
Kevin.
this is